Welcome, everyone, to a new edition of SpotOn Chat. I'm your host, Bonnie Dillabo, and I have with me Rebecca Monet, the president of ZoracleProfiles.com. Rebecca, welcome.
Thanks, Bonnie, for having me.
We're so glad to get a chance to just delve right into stage 3 of growth. And I have to tell you, I have just enjoyed so much what we have already covered, and I'm really excited about what we're going to cover today because stage 3 is a bit of a mystery to me, and we've already covered all this wonderful science about how important the stages of growth are to all businesses, but most especially franchises, and how they deal with that wonderful mix between the franchisor and the franchisee. Let's talk about stage 3.
We all franchisors aspire to, is stage 3, or what we call plug and play. But let me backtrack just a little bit so those who are listening to this that just sort of jumped in here can kind of get a little history of what's going on. The stages of growth is the science of 3 individuals. Rostow, who wrote a book called The 5 Stages of Growth, The Stages of Economic Growth was the title of his book, and then Neil Churchill, who wrote a white paper along with his associate Virginia Lewis called The 5 Stages of Small Business Growth. And all that Zoracle really does in looking at franchisors and their stages of growth is combine their research and work with the work of Dr. Claire Graves, who suggested that evolution, both human evolution and in this case also business evolution, is in a spiral and or circular mode. It is not linear or tiered as Neil Churchill may have suggested, but more a spiral or more circular, more like what Rostow may have suggested. So stage 1 is a franchisor, that early stage, we call it an entrepreneurial stage, brand new company where the founder is still at the head. Stage 2, we've brought in a CEO or an operations individual, and there's a divide and conquer that's starting to happen. Stage 3, which is where we are today, the franchise business has evolved to a certain degree where systems have gone in place and the focus is beginning to change. The focus is not so much on the systems because stage 2 was focusing on that, putting legs underneath the idea of this product or service that the concept originator had. Stage 3, the focus is now on the franchisee. The focus is on what can we do as a franchisor to help the franchisee grow market share. So it's at this stage that our franchise system is not only just replicable in that the systems are in place and becoming more plug and play, but our value proposition as a franchise system is clear. We know this is what we're selling, this is our customer, this is how we go into the marketplace, and we have strong systems that we can now roll out to the next phase of franchisees. So we have a strong replicable systems, we have a clear value proposition, and our focus is now on the franchisee, recruiting them, training them, and most importantly, supporting them. And we're beginning to, as a franchisor, add certain services and solutions. We might be rolling out at this point things like insurances or agreements or systems that include vendors that are providing directly to our franchisees. So that might be for printing or it might be for equipment. So we are now starting to roll out things in stage 3 to the franchisee that makes their life easier so they can do their job better. So the focus has gone from product to system to franchisee. So we are now in officially stage 3.
Well, stage 3 sounds like an exciting place to be as a franchise.
It is. It is. It's probably also the most profitable place for a franchisor. This is on the bell curve. If you're looking at those early adopters in stage 1 and stage 2, more sort of tripling. And stage 3 is where prospective franchisees are taking notice. There's still good markets available, maybe not a ton of regional development opportunities or multi-unit opportunities, but the market is not overly saturated. There's still room for franchisees. And, of course, there's market presence. So you don't have to bring a new product or service to your local marketplace. The market has already embraced you, already likes what you are doing. Now it's just sort of plugging in those holes of markets that don't have that particular concept in it. So our stage 3 franchisee is someone that typically ramps up faster. He's not going through that learning curve. The franchisor has already proven the systems, and the franchisee, if he's a good fit, will go, yay, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. All I have to do is embrace those concepts, exploit those concepts and those systems, and I will build a business in my local marketplace. So it's proven, it's solid, and it's replicable. What else could a franchisee want, right?
I was just thinking that as a franchisee, when a company is in this particular stage of growth, if you're the kind of person who really doesn't need that hands-on, we talked about in the last 2 stages of growth, that those particular franchisees really like their hands-on and the ability to be involved in the growth and the changes in the products and the systems. This is something you could almost do pretty hands-off, where you buy the franchise and then just hire somebody to run it.
Actually, that's very, very true. Because it is so systematized and replicable at this point, it's not uncommon for strong investors to come in that have management teams, just have others managing the location. In fact, many franchisors have what we call an executive model or strategy, which allows someone to be absentee owners. Now, this is not always the best strategy, but it works for many of our franchisors where strong managers run a location and someone can either keep their job or be on the outside of it. And that's because at this point, the need for a true kind of hunter or a true entrepreneurial individual is no longer necessary. It really is an individual that has business skills, but not necessarily the risk taker that we saw in the earlier stages.
So in this particular stage of growth, I know that like in the last 2, there's going to be some things that are, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly about these particular things. So let's just start with our franchisee. What would be the challenges for a franchisee in this system, in this stage of growth?
Some of the challenges for our franchisee, if they're not a good fit. If they're a good fit, this is not a problem. If they're not a good fit, there's a lot of accountabilities. The back office system, the POS systems, the marketing fees, the royalties, the reporting that is going on, the compliance, the signage has to be a particular way, the footprint is a particular way if it's a location-based business. So for a franchisee that comes into a stage 3 that's a good fit, they're not going to have a problem with that. If they're a franchisee that should be more in a stage 1 or a stage 2, they may feel uncomfortable. Why should I have my business card where my photo is in the upper left-hand corner? I kind of like it in the upper right-hand corner. You know, if you're a creative type as a franchisee, just know that a stage 3 business is a proven system. There's a reason the franchisor is asking you to do these things this way, because it works. It works. That's why we call it a plug and play. So if it's a franchisee that is needing more creativity, is more of a pioneer, then he's going to have some challenges in that particular system. The other kind of issue that the franchisee in stage 3, at least a prospective franchisee in this stage, is going to have is when he's on the phone and he's doing his validation calls. He's calling franchisees as part of his due diligence process. He's going to find there are a few franchisees that are not happy, that aren't doing well. Now, don't be discouraged. If you are a prospective franchisee making these kinds of phone calls and getting this kind of information, because this is a stage 3 company. So ask some questions of that franchisee that's struggling or unhappy, how long they've been with the system. If they were early stage franchisees where they had a lot of autonomy and they're now in stage 3, they've sort of been drugged along into stage 3, they could simply not be happy because of all the accountabilities and because of all the best practices that are being pushed out, and they're not allowed to be as creative as they would like to be. So ask the right questions when you are prospective franchisees, because there's going to be some validation issues. So that's another challenge that the franchisee is going to have in this particular stage. And naturally, even though the marketplace is not overly saturated, the prime locations and prime markets are indeed already picked. You may be talking to a franchisor that may or may not have territory available for where you currently are. So that might require, if you really want to be with this franchise system and you're a good fit, it may require some out-of-the-box thinking in terms of possibly moving to a marketplace that does offer some opportunity for you.
When I think of this particular stage of growth, being on the end of as the franchisor, I'd be pretty happy because I'm still in charge of what happens. But being the franchisee for me doesn't sound like it would be a good fit, because I would feel constrained. I would feel like, oh my gosh, there's all these rules.
Right. For you, because you, as we discovered last week, are a stage 2 franchisee. If you were to be a franchisee, you would do best in late stage 1 and in a stage 2. When it moves to stage 3, which is where most, on that bell curve, where most are coming on board, you would now be slightly bored. But trust me, you are in the minority. Most business people, corporate executives that are choosing to go out and build a business and leave corporate America, they're looking for a solid stage 3. They don't want to reinvent the wheel. They're not creative. They are executors. They are business people. They're financial people. They don't want to create. They don't want to figure it out. They want a system that they can plug into and exploit. So this is a different type of individual, right? It's not you. Show me what you have. Show me your best practices, and show me how others have done it, and I can do it 5%, 10%, 15% better, because I know I love systems. So it's a unique individual that fits in here. It's not that crazy, wild West entrepreneur. It isn't. This is a great place to go into business. It has a lot more stability, a lot more security. Our franchisees ramp up faster. There's all kinds of leverageability of resources, including mentors within the organization, great training, great support, strong financials, vendor agreements that the franchisor has. So lots of great benefits for the franchisee if, as you pointed out, it's the right franchisee.
I think that's the point of why you do what you do. Anyone who's really interested in being in business can potentially find a good fit with a franchise as long as they're really clear on what kind of a franchisee they really are. It's a lot easier to choose. It allows us to be able to tell just exactly where you might have the best fit.
Absolutely. You said it so well, Bonnie. That's the key. There's very few. I mean, there are a few that will score on what we call corporate ladder climbers, that they really are better at working through that corporate structure and reaching the top that way. There are a few that really shouldn't be franchisees. But in general, as you pointed out, it's not that they can't do it. It's that they just have to choose the right opportunity, and that's part of their due diligence process of not just discovering who the franchisor is, but who they are as an individual. What are their values? What are their core competencies? What is their stages of growth? And that's also the role of the franchisor and the franchise broker, is to help that prospective franchisee to put a mirror to themselves, and then a process to look at the franchise system to see, does this system match up to who I am? Will it allow me to be fully me and allow me to put who I am to good use to build a business? It kind of reminds me of a story 20 years ago. A friend of mine who was in franchising, her and her cousin bought a yogurt shop. And trust me, the yogurt business is a good business. She is, much like you, Bonnie, creative and people person and likes new things and all of those things. And, of course, yogurt 20 years ago was a new concept. And so she and her cousin put their money together and bought a yogurt shop. And after about the third day, where she's saying, would you like, crumbles on top of that yogurt, she was fed up with the business. It was boring. Yes, there was a million toppings, but she couldn't do it. She just couldn't do it one more time. So, again, not a good fit for her. She ended up going into a different franchise business, and was very successful. And today, still very, very happy with her decision. But it was the first round out, she made a bad decision because she wasn't knowledgeable about what to look for, who she was.
Now, with the Stage 3 franchise, we talked about the challenges, but there's also some benefits, and they're actually pretty significant benefits to being a Stage 3 franchisee or a Stage 3 franchisor. Can we talk about those?
So let's talk about the franchisee first, and then we'll talk about the benefits to the franchisor. For the franchisee, we mentioned that there's already market awareness, so we don't have to create that as franchisees. But there's still available market, so that would be one benefit. There's also some pruning going on, more pruning at Stage 3 than even at Stage 2. In this plug-and-play place, our early-stage franchisees are thinking it's time to retire, or they no longer are a good fit, or life circumstances have just taken them in such a way that they need to exit. So there's some pruning going on, allowing the new franchisee some market that maybe wasn't available earlier. So the other benefit, of course, is they're going to ramp up faster. They got better and proven best practices. And at this place, there are advisory panels and there are committees composed of usually successful franchisees that will basically do the research and provide advisement to the franchisor as well as to the franchisee. So these are the best of the best in the marketplace, and they have stepped up and said, listen, we'll start an advisory group for technology or for marketing or whatever. So all of a sudden the franchisee that's coming in can leverage on this brain bank, so to speak, that wasn't available in Stage 1 and Stage 2. And finally, one of the benefits to the franchisee is the leverageability not only of the intelligence that's there, but of other resources. We talked about that a little bit earlier, equipment, printing, et cetera, that if they had to negotiate on their own behalf in their local marketplace would be higher than now that the franchisor is negotiating those kinds of vendors and suppliers and providing certain discounts straight to the franchisee. To your other point, Bonnie, some of the benefits to the franchisor, I'm going to call it silos or delegation is what Churchill called it. In Stage 3, we now have VPs of marketing and VPs of technology and VP of communication. These are people that are experts. They've risen to the top. You don't have one person who is wearing this hat, in the morning, the marketing hat in the morning, and as a franchisor in the afternoon wearing the bookkeeping hat, and then later on so now what's happening is we're delegating. This is how a franchisor grows, is he gets a smart person whose expertise is marketing or technology, and he builds teams or silos around them. So we're not all sort of being jack of all trades. We are now experts. So this is a distinct benefit to the franchisor because there's revenues that warrant that. And, of course, the benefits then go back out to our franchisees. That, to me, is one of the best benefits. Never mind, we now have some solid revenues that are coming in from a royalty stream. Those first couple stages of franchising, the franchisor's revenue was the buy-in, the dollars that the franchisee paid just to get in, and that was funding everything else. Now we have royalties coming, a regular monthly stream of dollars that allows us to build a very strong expert team around us. So wonderful benefits for the stage 3 franchisor. Never mind, we got some market penetration. People are taking notice. Investors are sniffing around. And it's a very happy place for a franchisor. Ideally, I got to tell you, Bonnie, and this is in Churchill's work again, a franchisor will hover in stage 3 for the rest of the duration of that franchise system. Just hover, because it's a profitable place. It's a place that makes sense for everyone. So some will choose to hover, and some will choose to go through explosive growth and move on to stage 4. It's a conscious decision that a franchisor will make, either to stay and hover and reap the rewards of all the work they've put in, or move on and go ahead and dominate the marketplace, right?
Right. It seems to me that franchisor, this is a happy place.
Oh, I wish I could say so. I wish it's happy financially, but they do have some challenges. They do have some challenges. And one of the challenges they have, Bonnie, is retention issues. This is where our franchisees start to fall off. Why? They don't like the accountability. There's extra costs involved to pay for all these systems. This is horrible for our franchisors because, of course, we want our franchisees to continue to be interdependent and grow with us forever and ever and ever. But that by stage 3, this is not happening. We're starting to have some retention issues. We're starting to have some validation issues. For the same reason, stage 2, the partnership franchisor relationship began to have validation issues. Oftentimes, these validation issues are because of poor selection choices to start with. They've chosen someone who should be in the stage 4 business or a stage 2 business, and they're now a stage 3 business, and they're just not comfortable. The franchisee is not comfortable. And when you're not comfortable and you're not happy and you're not ramping up and you're not profitable, you're going to whine. You're going to point your fingers, or at least some people do. Maybe you don't and I don't, but others do. And so there's validation issues. The cost of litigation starts to go out the roof because, remember, now we are requiring the signage to be a certain way and the footprint to be a certain way. And we have early-stage franchisees who have stood firm and said, you know, I like the way it was. I don't like the way it is. I'm not going to pay that. I'm not going to report that. And so the franchisor exerts his side of the contract, and there's litigation problems. And it could be the other direction also, where the franchisee believes he's been promised certain things by the franchisor, and he's not getting it. So there's litigation. So lots of challenges in stage 3 businesses, including the additional costs that are involved with supporting, training these franchisees. Now in stage 3, we got in the field consultants helping those franchisees. We got extra trainers. We got extra support people in place. So there's increased costs. Granted, there's revenues coming in, but it's still something that has to be properly managed. So yes, it sounds like all blue skies in stage 3, but there's also a lot of challenges.
I would think that what that means is in stage 2, as you're moving into stage 3, putting some strategies into place to help reduce that as much as possible.
That's it. If you know the stage of growth you're in, and you know it's predictable, that's what stages of growth is about. The crises that you're going to experience as a franchisor is predictable. And if you know what's coming up, you can or go down to the basement or board up the windows, right? You can put in measures to maybe not avoid it, but mitigate or lessen the impact of those issues. So still taking advantage of the benefits of growth through delegation in this case, but also knowing that the crises that the stage 3 company is going to endure are all around control of systems, control of money, control of branding and brand equity, and the franchisee pushing against who's in control. Wait a minute, I thought this was my business. And so all the issues that are going to come up in stage 3 are control issues. Putting in place mechanisms to have that be a gradual process, select the right franchisee that likes those kinds of quality controls, because that's how the franchisor sees it. He sees it as quality control, protecting the brand equity, etc. So putting in systems and implementing means to have the control still remain in an interdependent way will allow the franchisor to stay and hover in this place in a way where they're forever financially productive and have happy franchisees. Doesn't always happen, though, does it?
It sounds to me like that you've got stages within that stage. So you've got the initial stage where you get, as you say, this crisis that says there are some people that are just not, because they're not intended ever to be a stage 3 franchisee, that are going to push back and are going to get uncomfortable, and they're out of their happy place right now. But eventually, after the initial stage of that stage, then you get to a point where everything's sorted out. People who need to be out of there are out of there, and now you've just got the people who would normally be happy in this stage 3. They're all on board. Everybody's pretty much seeing the same page. You don't have any huge innovations that are going to jar people loose for the most part. And now you are, your culture is solid in your company, and you're starting to see that kind of thing that you envisioned from the beginning of how you wanted to feel about this business.
You're right. That's kind of the thought process. But here's where Dr. Claire Graves' work comes in. You're describing it as if it was a linear process. If we do this, then this will happen, and if we do this, this will happen. And that makes logical sense. What throws a monkey wrench into everything is it's not linear, because you're dealing with a human element. Forget we're dealing with the economy. Forget we're dealing with price points. Forget we're dealing with competition and new technology, just all those things outside of us as a franchise system. Forget all those. Let's assume we can have everything stay on pause out there. But we can't keep people on pause. People are going to continually evolve and change. We talked about this in our personality chat, right, Bonnie, in that who you are today is not who you were 10 years ago. And so the minute a franchisor tries to put his finger in the dike with that one particular hole, there's another one over here that he's putting in, because that franchisee is also evolving. Unless we can get that franchisee to evolve at exactly the same pace we are, which is highly unlikely unless we're doing an incredible job selecting the right franchisees, which of course is what Zorpo is all about, then this human element is going to be that wild card that we talked about in that stage 1. There's this wild card of who is this person becoming, what life circumstances are shaping them to some degree. If we could say it was just personality, and we're only measuring these 3 or 4 personality attributes, and that's never going to change in their lifetime, then yes, we can control not only what that franchisee is going to do, but we can now control the franchise system. But we know that that's not true. This is why personality tests don't work, is people evolve, people change, and the system changes, and the economy changes, and competition comes in, and so it's a constant movement. So ideally what you're describing is what all franchisors strive for, and some accomplish to some degree when they move into stage 4. But most, in honesty, do not. It continues to cycle, and we go from stage 1 through stage 5, and then we cycle back, and we're back in stage 1. That's that circular thing that we were talking about. But your logic is what a true MBA would think. Okay, if we can control this and control this and control this, then we got it going. But remember, stage 3, the issue is the crises of control. The more we try to control, the more something over here leaks. So the very thing we're attempting to do is causing the crises in and of itself. So we're talking about stages of growth in this series. It's not just stages of growth. It's the ability for someone's values to evolve in tandem with the ZOR, to be able to adapt to a changing culture, because a culture in a stage 3 company is different than a culture in a stage 1 company. So you're describing individuals that are literally evolving in a spiral way, the same way that franchisor is, and it's a good fit. This was a good decision on the franchisee's part and on the franchisor's part, and that's ideal. That's what we want. By stage 3, let me tell you who's in charge, especially in late stage 3. It's the attorneys. It's the attorneys that are in charge, that are looking at complying, having our franchisees comply, putting in the rules. So the crises, again, according to Churchill, is a crisis of control. And at the root of every human being, we want choice. We want free will. And all of a sudden, we're in a stage 3, moving to stage 4 company where there's starting to be a power struggle. Who really is in control? And it's difficult sometimes to feel that balance. And it's a struggle that our stage 3 franchisors are dealing with, and our stage 4 franchisors are dealing with, to continue to have this fabulous balance that we had in stage 2 of this interdependency, this place of choice, this place of deciding we're going to partner because I respect you, you respect me, and we're going to build this business together. You're going to do as a franchisor what you do well. I, as a franchisee, am going to do what I do well, and there's going to be this back and forth. Unfortunately, as a franchisor evolves, that's not always what happens, especially as attorneys start to get in play, and they have to get in. I'm not suggesting that's not the answer. I'm just saying that as it becomes more and more systematized, more and more plug and play, there becomes this power struggle, and we hear it out in the marketplace of an us against them, which is not what our franchisors want. They want to be on the same team with their franchisees.
Right.
But just the nature of a stage 3, a late stage 3 and moving to stage 4 business is one where it starts to create this us against them, not what we want.
So obviously stage 3 has its advantages, but maybe there are more advantages as we move on. So we're going to talk next time about stage 4. But before we do, for a franchisor in stage 3 of growth, what do you recommend? What are the things they need to watch out for, and what can mitigate the issues in stage 3?
So the number one issue a stage 3 franchisor is going to have is a relational issue, a control issue. This brings up all the other issues, the retention issues, the validation issues, the litigation issues, and the cost to do those kinds of things. So remember what the issue is. The issue is a crisis of control. These franchisees are not employees. They are your partners. So the best way to mitigate this us against them and the best way to mitigate any of these conflicts of control is to, as best as you possibly can, create an interdependent relationship through communication, through giving the franchisee choice. That's not always easy because we understand you have to protect your brand equity, but also know that the franchisee is what helped you build. So the focus, and most of our franchisors in Stage 3 are very good at this, the focus in Stage 3 is on helping the franchisee. Focus on what you can do to validate and respect the franchisee and what they bring to the table versus treating them like a technician or like they're an employee. They're not. So that to me is a number one piece of advice I can give. And know that if you compromise in this area, you're going to be putting your finger in the dike in 1,000 different places as the Stage 3 franchisees moving into Stage 4 begin to get a little disgruntled.
I mean, that sounds like good advice, and I think really in any case, and probably at every stage, the one thing that you keep talking about is the importance of communication and relationships between the franchisor and the franchisee.
Absolutely. The communication, the relationship, and, of course, the selection. When you're bringing in a new franchisee, they need to fit where you are today and where you're going tomorrow, and come up with strategies for folks that can't make those transitions so they can exit gracefully.
Is that also a piece of advice that you would give to a franchisee, is making sure that the communications are really, really solid between them and the franchisor?
With a Stage 3 franchisee, let's just kind of know where they are. Kind of know that the franchisor's intentions are to grow with you and you with them. We're on the same team. And the franchisor needs to put some of these policies in place. And there's a lot of opportunities if you can embrace those policies. So, yeah, I think it's the same thing, is to embrace those best practices. When the franchisor rolls something out, he's not rolling it out just to control you. He's rolling it out because it's going to make you more money and it's going to make your life easier. So be open, be receptive to these best practices and these systems that the franchisor is rolling out to you. There's a reason they're doing that. And, of course, if you're a Stage 3 franchise, be thinking about how you too can replicate, whether that's through additional locations. This is a wonderful time in Stage 3 as a franchisee to consider a second, a third, a fourth location or territory. Because remember, folks are now retiring, they're exiting, there's a pruning opportunity. So if you're a good franchisee and you believe in this system, look around you. There are people retiring, and you can pick up that territory or that location. So there's a lot of opportunity for Stage 3 franchisees to grow at this particular time. The franchisor may not always tell you about it. You've got to keep your ear to the ground for these locations where folks are retiring or stepping down.
So it sounds to me like networking among franchisees is probably a really good idea.
Absolutely. And remember, at this place, there's committees and there's panels, and if it's a superstar franchisee, they're usually in the know. They'll know when Joe down zip code such and such is thinking about selling. Networking, going to those conferences, being part of those weekly or the quarterly calls, be a part of it and know what's going on.
Would a broker also be a person that you might go to as a Stage 3 franchisee looking for a new opportunity within that franchise? Would a broker have their ear to the ground about these kinds of things?
Oftentimes they are. If they're a combination franchise, a broker and business broker where they can sell going concerns, a broker will oftentimes know about resales within a franchise concept. But they're also obviously talking to prospective franchisees that are looking at just about anything. And if they're looking at a prospective franchisee that would fit well in a Stage 3, of course, that's what we want to plug that individual into. broker is constantly meeting individuals that could fit in any of these 5 stages. Many franchisees, prospective franchisees, especially our corporate refugees, the guy or gal who's decided to leave her job and go into business, will fit really well in a stage 3 franchise system because they're used to systems, they're used to controls, they're used to accountabilities. So for a broker who is representing a stage 3 franchisor, a plug-and-play franchisor, going out and recruiting or working with corporate refugees is an excellent opportunity to put that corporate executive into a plug-and-play business. That's a good fit. That usually works very well.
I'm really interested to see how that changes because, as you said, it's really easy to kind of hang out in stage 3. And for me, that seems like a really pretty good place to be, even with the potential drawbacks. But you're telling me that stage 4 could be even a better place to be.
There's where the twist is. The answer is not necessarily. Not necessarily. We'll talk about that. Yeah, you're going to have some surprises coming up, Bonnie.
I love surprises. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with stage 3. Now you know, what stage 3 is and what you can do about it. The important thing, again, is putting the right person in the right place, regardless of what stage of growth you are as a franchisor or a potential franchisee. It's about making a good match. And one of the ways that we do that is knowing where you are and who you are. And we have this really great tool. This tool allows franchisors, franchisees, and brokers who are trying to make these matches to make a fit that ensures the best possible chance of success from both ends, whether that's from the franchisor getting a really awesome franchisee or a franchisee getting the opportunity to be with just the right company with just the right stage of growth with their values and their interests. And all of that is comprised in this wonderful tool. And you can see that tool on our website, zoracleprofiles.com. You can go in and actually take the assessment yourself. It doesn't cost anything. Just go in and take the assessment and see the complexity of what they're offering in terms of a report when it's all done. And then for those of you who are brokers or franchisors, go in and get the free trial so that you can actually use that tool to find just the right franchisee for just the right business. And so we're going to see you next time for stage of growth number 4, where Rebecca's going to give us some surprises. Right, Rebecca?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Rebecca,